Hi, how you doing? I'm Anton Fraplewski, and I'm sitting in front of scenic and quiet Interstate 80 in southern Wyoming, and I'm sitting on an outcrop of the Mesa Verde group, which is a Cretaceous clastic wedge that was building out into the western interior sea as a result of local laramide uplifts shedding sediment into the marine basin. The Mesa Verde is a combination of tidal and wave-dominated shore faces and deltaic deposits. There's some coastal plain as well, but it's really a mixed bag of fluvial, tidal, and wave-dominated structures. What I'm sitting in front of right now is strongly current-dominated. It's unidirectionally current-dominated. You can see the trough cross-bedding, and it's strongly heading to that direction is northwest. So current flow in this sand body is strongly to the northwest, which is counter to a lot of the paleocurrent data from the western interior. A lot of the sand bodies out here in the Mesa Verde are flowing strongly to the south. So this is a little bit of an anomaly. The interesting thing about this, besides this nice, big, beautiful cross-bedding, is it's got a lot of burrows, a lot of Ophiomorpha burrows in it. And everybody's probably heard of or is somewhat familiar with Ophiomorpha. You might not know the whole story. There's a lot of myths about Ophiomorpha. So I want to talk a little bit about that right here, this very quiet outcrop. On top of the Ophiomorpha, we have another interesting feature, which is that upper surface. And you can see it goes from sand-dominated to mud, clay-dominated, siltstone and clay-dominated mud. And the interface between the two is a heavily burrowed zone. There's Ophiomorpha, things like Planolites and Paleophycus. There's a whole lot of sedimentary disruption there. That's a flooding surface, this transgressive surface on top of the sand body. So we've got a marine sand body that's building up to a certain height. It's trough crossbedded. It's getting that strongly northwestern paleo flow. Then sedimentation gets cut off, subsidence continues, and you transgress the whole thing. That upper part is probably, and it is mapped as, and it probably is, the Lewis Shale. And the Lewis Shale is, of course, a deep water shale. It represents the development of a shelf slope break tectonically created here in the western interior. The reason for that shelf slope break is local laramide uplifts really started pumping up. And behind me in that direction, which is to the south, unfortunately looking in the sun, but to the south are the Medicine Bow and Sierra Madre uplift. So the Medicine Bow and Sierra Madre uplift were actively going up in the late Cretaceous, shedding sediment. They're also causing loading on the crust and really set up that deep basin in the Washakie Basin, the Hanna Basin, and that's why we have deep water deposits in the Lewis. There's the famous Lewis turbidites, the Lewis fans, and so forth. That's because these local uplifts really started going like gangbusters. And that is where it started happening, in the early Maastrichtian. So this stuff down here is probably latest Campanian. That's probably earliest Maastrichtian. There's some slop in there, but generally that's what we're looking at. So as always, as the semis go by, I've got a nice little whiteboard diagram that kind of captures what I've just been babbling about. On my side of the whiteboard is a very simplified stratigraphic column of these sand bodies below me. It's about 16 meters of sand, give or take, and there's three packages. The lower two are low-angle planar bedded with burrowing at the top. There's Ophiomorpha, some Paleophycus, and the bases of each of those appear to be scoured. Then the third one is this one that I'm sitting on top of right now, and it's the thickest one. It's around 8 meters, and it goes from low-angle planar to very strongly trough cross-bedded. And the upper part of that is where we get that flooding surface, that transgressive surface with the Lewis Shale, and it's a heavily burrowed surface, as transgressive surfaces often are. They represent flooding, they represent colonization by benthic organisms. They don't happen in a day, they don't happen in a week, they happen, over hundreds, thousands of years, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of years. So they do take time, and there's plenty of time to colonize. Now, off on the other side, the far side of the whiteboard, is just a quick introduction to Ophiomorpha, and I mentioned some of the myths you might have heard. It is not a fecal-lined burrow. It's actually lined by little spitwads. The Callian acid shrimp that make it even today use mucus and sand to make reinforcing pellets where the sand is unconsolidated, burrowing in. Where it's consolidated, they don't need the pellets, they don't need the lining, so they might just use mucus or no lining at all, and it branches off, and that becomes thalassinoides. So Kelly and acid shrimp make both Ophiomorpha and thalassinoides. Same animal makes two different types of burrows, and that's very common, and I'll have some more videos on that also. I'll also have some videos of modern Ophiomorpha, because you might have heard that Ophiomorpha is an open marine ichnotaxon. It represents open marine and shelf settings. I will show you some examples of Ophiomorpha in a strongly freshwater stressed deltaic system, a bayhead delta. So you got that to look forward to. So again, from the beautiful, beautiful, scenic and quiet Interstate 80, I hope you've learned something. I hope you've found something useful in this little video. Get outside, look at some rocks, step away from your computer. Not everything exists in a spreadsheet or a geomodel. Get dirty, look at some of these things. You'll be glad you did. Thanks for watching.